Have you ever seen someone on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube ever use resin before? Or even heard of the term? This brings me to my question. What is resin? Resin is a liquid composition of natural and synthetic compounds that come together to form a hard, durable plastic. This once soft paintbrush was recently used in a resin project and has cured to become as hard as a rock. There are two broad categories of resin: natural and synthetic. Natural resins come from the trees, and synthetic ones are made up of properties from the natural ones and are mixed with many different chemical compounds. Those two categories can be separated into several different types of resin. These resins include UV resin, epoxy resin, art resin, casting resin, and etc. Those resins depend on what materials you're trying to use or what projects you're trying to use them for. A lot of people use their resin to encapsulate and preserve items, make jewelry, make tables, and mend items together. When you are encapsulating the item, you are like using a dead butterfly and putting it in a case of resin so it can be clear and seen. Jewelry, people make a lot of jewelry with it. And this brings me to my next point of what type of resin should you buy? When you get your resin, you need to make sure you have it for the right materials and the right projects that you are using it for. This is what a $30 amount of resin looks like from Amazon. And this is what a $60 amount of resin looks like from Amazon. When you get your resin, it will always come with a part A and a part B. There is a hardener and the epoxy resin. You need to make sure you do not go cheap with the resin because it will either get chunky on you, it will have bad bubbles in it, or it will never even cure. So you need to make sure you spend a good amount of money on a good product so that your product can come out amazing. As you can see with this resin, it has turned a bit yellow. This is due to the fact that it was old or it was never stored properly. When you get your resin, you need to make sure you store it properly so that you can get your money's worth. This brings me to my last point and tips and tricks. This was my recent project that I used resin for. You can see the little shine. There are a lot of tips that I will give on what you should do and not do when you are using your resin. When you use your resin, you need to make sure you have a nice clean area that you can have, that you make sure that you have space to if it drips, and make sure it's dust free. You need to have 2 containers to where you can mix part A and part B together. You have to make sure you get the ratio as closely as what the bottle says. If it says 1:1, you need to make sure you get it as close as possible. When you stir, you need to make sure you stir slowly so you don't create a lot of air bubbles. And when you use the torch to blow those air bubbles out on top, do not get too close or it'll start to burn. When you use epoxy, there are a lot of different types you could use and a lot of different tips you use. So you should just look on YouTube and figure out which one is best for you.